My name's Nat Rothman. I'm a scientist. I work at the National Cancer Institute in Maryland in the United States. And I work in the Division of Cancer Epidemiology and Genetics, and in one particular part called the Occupational and Environmental Epidemiology branch. And I'm trying to figure out why certain kinds of cancers may be linked to occupation, to environment, and also may be related to how these environmental exposures work together with genes to increase people's risk of disease. The main focus of my research is on lymphoma. I've worked on lymphoma for many years, and I'm trying to understand what causes lymphoma. Now, an area in particular that I work in is the genetic contribution, which means how inherited factors that we get from our parents may influence the probability of our getting lymphoma in the future. And I've had the opportunity to work on a very big project that involves more than 10,000 cases of lymphoma from studies in many different places in the United States, Canada, Europe, Australia, and we pulled together a large number of cases and controls, and we've done some very intensive genetic analyses in order to try to understand, again, how the inherited contribution that we get from our parents contributes to risk of disease of lymphoma. And we have some very exciting findings. We've identified multiple new areas in different parts of our genome, of our chromosomes that we inherit, that are associated with increasing our risk of ultimately developing lymphoma or certain specific types of lymphoma. And today at this meeting, we discussed some of these very new findings that we will be publishing very soon. And for the first time, we have some exciting findings for a number of different types of lymphoma. Chronic lymphocytic leukemia, diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, follicular lymphoma, T-cell lymphomas, and we're finding that certain genetic patterns increase people's risk of developing those cancers. The big point is that we know that changes in the immune system increase risk of lymphoma. And we are now finding, not unexpectedly, that inherited changes in the immune system also affect risk of lymphoma. So you think about it, if you have certain kinds of diseases or have certain types of exposures that either increase your immune system, make it hyperactive, or really suppress it, we know that under some conditions that can increase risk of lymphoma. We are now finding that inherited variation within the immune system, in the genes that are involved in your immune system, can also influence your risk of lymphoma, not unexpectedly. So, in other words, your immune system can be influenced by the environment, and it can be influenced by genetics. So what we have found is a lot of information about how genetic variation in the immune system, specifically in a part called the HLA, but the key thing is in the immune system, can alter your risk of multiple types of lymphoma. There are three reasons why we're very excited about our new genetic findings. The first is that these genetic findings are giving us a tool that we think will better help us understand how environment and lifestyle factors influence lymphoma. Because we'll study how those environmental factors affect people's risk of lymphoma depending upon certain types of inherited genetic traits. We call this gene-environment interaction. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we are not just studying how these genetic factors influence lymphoma, we also are studying how, after you get lymphoma, how these genetic factors may impact on how you respond to treatment and your overall survival and length of survival. So we think that these genetic factors may also play a role not just in increasing your risk of disease, but it may influence how you respond to treatment and your clinical outcome. And the third thing that excites us a great deal is that we are now finding that there are certain inherited regions on our genome, certain chromosomes, that seem to put people at risk for not just one type of lymphoma, but for many types of lymphoma. Right? Diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, chronic lymphocytic leukemia, Hodgkin disease, and they seem to be in the same part of the genome. And not only that, they also seem to be associated with increased risk of other kinds of cancers as well. So the genetics that we're now studying, we think are going to lead us into new insight into understanding what triggers different types of lymphoma. And we hope that also will ultimately translate into benefits for patients by increasing our understanding and potentially by giving us targeted therapies that play off of, that use the information that we're collecting.